Okay, quick show of hands. Whose dog knows the sit command? Everybody tells me that their dog knows how to do the sit command. And I would say about 90% of the time when I meet with a new client, the dog doesn't know how to do a sit command. So I'm gonna explain why in this video and how to get your dog to do the stationary commands. There's 3 of them, and your dog's gonna learn how in this video. Okay, so in this video, I want to talk about the stationary command. And there's 3 of them. Your dog could be doing a moving command, or they could be doing a stationary command. So a moving command would be like come when called, walking on leash, sendaways, those types of things. Stationary command is when your dog is not moving. And there's 3 of them. Your dog can sit, your dog can lay down, and your dog can stand. Those are 3 positions your dog can be in when they're not moving. And what you want to do is you want to teach all 3. Everybody always says, why do we need to teach a dog how to do a stand? But stand is a very useful command. Anyways, I want to talk about how I opened up this video. I said that about 90% of the people that I see, their dogs cannot do a sit command. And I was correct when I said that. And you're thinking, my dog knows how to do a sit. My dog's great at sit. Tell her to sit anytime and she does it. Here's the thing. When we give the dog a command, like sit or down or stand, we want your dog to hold the command until they are released from the command. That's how I teach all the stationary commands. So if I tell my dog to sit, I walk out of the room, I make a cup of coffee, I come back in, I expect the dog still sitting there. What most dogs know how to do is the sit position. So the dog can put his butt on the ground, and then after a few seconds, he gets up and walks away. That's the sit position. The sit command is the dog goes into a sit position, but does not move until they're released from the command. That's useful, functional obedience, and that's what you want your dog to learn. The sit command is much different than the sit position. There's 2 parts to teaching the dog how to do the stationary commands. One is you want the dog to get into position. The second thing is that you want the dog to hold the position. And then you want the dog to be able to go from position to position without relying on the previous one. So your dog should be able to go from a sit to a down, from a down to a sit, from a sit to a stand, from a stand to a down, from a down to a stand. But your dog should be able to go from one command to the next, one position to the next. Then they should learn how to hold each position until you release the dog. When people think of the sit command, it seems like it's a very simple, basic command, and it is, but to perfect it, your dog needs to learn to hold that command, that position, until you release them. So there's a couple things that you have to do. Not only do you have to get the dog into position, but they have to learn to hold it. So you want to start using some type of word to communicate, keep doing what you're doing. I use the word good. So when I tell a dog to sit, I tell him good, good. In the beginning, I'm going to do rate of reinforcement much higher, good. I'm going to reinforce, good. I'm going to reinforce. And then I give a very clear release, yes. Some people use break, some people use free, some people use okay. It does not matter. You just want to be consistent with a release word. Yes, good dog. And when you release your dog, you want the dog to physically get out of whatever position that they were in to let them know now you're off the clock. Now you can move. Now you have permission to do something else. What we're doing with something as simple as the sit command is first we're teaching them to get into position. Then we're rewarding the dog for staying there, for not moving. And this is where a lot of dogs get confused because a lot of dogs get corrected for moving. Before you can add any type of correction or negative consequence for the dog moving, the first thing you have to do is teach the dog, this is what I want you to do. So when I first start training the dog to do a sit command, I use the duration word good, and then I reinforce, reinforce, reinforce. Remember, reinforcement increases behavior. And then I'm very clear about the release. I don't give a dog a command without a release. I want to be consistent. That's what we need to do. So often when it comes to the sit command, it's a little more complex than we think. Now, the next thing that we want to do is we want to start moving on to other positions like a down and a stand. Now, getting the dog to do it down can be difficult for some dogs. And you want to just take your time. What I don't do is I don't force a dog into a down in the early stages. I'm just patient with the dog. What I find is that you try to force the dog into a down, you get a ton of resistance. So I really try to help the dog go into a down. I've worked with dogs. I used to have a Malinois. This dog hated doing the down when I first started working with them. Most dogs you can, if you're working with lab or golden, you give them a treat and you kind of lure them into a down and they go right into it. But there's just something about the down with some dogs that they don't like to do it. I'm just patient with the dog. I usually start from a sit position. You can do this from a sit or a stand position. I usually start with the dog in a sit because now the dog's not moving. It's just easier for most people to do a down from a sit. So you put the little treat on the dog's nose and you just guide the dog to the ground, follow the food lure. What you have to be careful of is going away from the dog. You want to go straight down, almost between the dog's legs, so the dog's head tucks a little bit. I find too that if I rest my left hand, if the treat's in my right hand, my left hand's resting on the dog's shoulders, it seems to help the dog. And I'm not pushing, kind of weird to explain, because what you don't do is push, because again, if you push on the shoulders, your dog is going to resist, opposition reflex. They're going to push back up. But if I just rest my hand, it seems to help. I just put the weight of my hand on the dog, and it just seems to help guide the dog into a down. And then once the dog is there, I just immediately release. I work on duration later. First, I want to make sure the dog can do it, and then I just release. And I don't say down when I first start teaching the dog to do the command, because I want to make sure the dog can do it first, and then I'll start to name the command. So you always want to teach a behavior, and then you name the behavior. You don't want to guide the dog into a down and the dog pops up on you as you're saying down. You guide the dog pops up, you're saying down. Now, the dog's starting to associate the word down with popping up. You want to make sure the dog can do it. Once the dog does it, then you can start to name it down, and then you give the dog the food lure into position, and then I just release. Yes, good dog. Now, you can also do it from a stand. You just guide the dog. You want the dog to actually rock back into a down. Again, if you're doing competitive obedience, a lot of guys like to teach the down from the stand, but for most people, I just do from a sit. It's just easier. And so the dog goes into a down, tell them yes, and I release, and then I start working on duration. And then the last stationary command that we teach is the stand command. Stand is real easy to get the dog into the position. It's difficult to get the dog to do duration. When they're standing, it's easier for them to move. I get the question, why do I have to teach my dog the stand command? And stand actually is a really good command to teach, because when you are doing commands, you do not want to do one command after another command all the time. So if you do sit, down, pretty soon when you say sit, your dog is going to lay down. I see it all the time with dogs that have been taught a couple of tricks. It's nice when someone teaches a dog how to sit, and then give paw, and then lay down, and then roll over, and then sit pretty, and then speak. And so what the owner does is they practice sit, and then lay down, and then give paw, and then speak, and then roll over. And pretty soon when you give the dog a treat or you show him a treat, the dog runs through all his tricks. And that's because one trick follows the next trick, usually in order. And dogs learn patterns really fast. And we don't really want your dog to learn a pattern. We want them to learn the command. And so instead of always doing sit down, I also like to throw in a stand. So it can be sit, down, sit, stand, down. You get it? Sure you do. So that's why I like to teach the stand. It's also useful, right? If your dog can stand there, it's easy to brush them out. If you're outside on a trail and it's all muddy and you need your dog to stay, you don't want to tell your dog to sit in the mud, you don't want your dog to lay in the mud, you can tell your dog to stand in the mud. So again, there's some really good reasons to teach the dog stand. Very easy. I start from a sit position and you just come straight back with the food lure and the dog pops up into a stand. That's basically all there is to it. And then again, I just release, and then I start to teach duration. And then what I work on is getting the dog to maintain a sit position for as long as I say so until I release. Yes, now the dog can move. And then we work on that with down. We do a lot of duration. Yes, and then they can move. And we do the same thing with stand. Yes, and then they can move. And then you want to practice, like I was saying earlier, going from one position to the next position. Test your dog. Can the dog go from a standing position into a down? From a down to a sit, from a sit to a down, you get it. Just get your dog to go from one command to the next. So that's what I like to do when it comes to teaching the dog the stationary commands, the sit, the down, and the stand. If you just give a little bit of practice every day, your dog can perfect these. They can learn to do the stand. They can learn to do a perfect sit. They can do a great down. You can learn how to do all these and hold them for as long as you need them to by just practicing with them a little bit. Thanks for watching this video, and don't forget, hit the subscribe button so that you can be notified every time we come out with a new video. And if you have any videos that you'd like us to make, or you have questions or anything like that, put them in the comments section below. I'll do my best to answer everyone. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.